Hello and welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour. My name is Brad Tilton, and I am excited to be here today on this beautiful Friday, January 15th. We've got a special guest today in Jared. It is not his first time joining us, but I don't know, how many times has it been now, Jared? Do you know?
Probably 5, 6 maybe.
Wow, nice. Well, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jared Munt. I'm the newly promoted VP of Engineering at Clear Sky Inc. We put identity governance and administration apps into the ServiceNow store and help our customers just manage their risk and IGA processes with that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. How about you, Chuck?
Hey, I'm Chuck Tomasi, Senior Developer Advocate at ServiceNow, and I am getting older by the day. Been with the company for about 10 and a half years. Oh my gosh, it's coming up on 11. Where does the time go? Was a customer for a couple of years before that, and started tinkering around with computers back in the early 80s. So that's coming up on 40 years. Oof. So a lot of fun. Love every minute of it, and we got some fun stuff to show you today.
All right, and my name is Brad Tilton. I'm a developer advocate here with the developer program at ServiceNow. I've been developing on the platform since about 2008 and have spent time as a customer, partner, and employee for the last 4-ish years. So before we get into it today, we're going to go ahead and introduce what we'll be drinking. And then at the end of the show, we will all rate our drinks. So we'll go ahead and start in the same order with Jared.
Today I have once again, fancy sparkling water in a legacy ServiceNow mug.
Nice. It is a fancy looking water.
That's nice. I am a little embarrassed, so I'm keeping it covered up. But I think the only thing left is either the grapefruit Rattler that I had last week or a Corona Premium. Which always makes it feel like I just got done snorkeling, and you hop back on the catamaran, and that's what they hand you in Mexico.
That's right. Well, I have a fun one today. So last week I drank a negative space. It's from one of my favorite breweries. And today I have a positive space, which is a spin on the negative space where they basically double all of the spices that they put into the negative space. And it's funny, I've had this sitting in my fridge for about a month and a half because my brother gave it to me. I can't find him up here. And my brother gave it to me, but told me I had to drink it on the show. And I had to drink it after I had a negative space the previous week. So I'm kind of proud of myself that I was able to resist for a month and a half, but we'll see how it is.
Does the negative space balance out the positive space, and then you get a zero space? I'm not sure. White space?
I don't think it works like that, but that would have been nice. Maybe if you combine them, something happens. I don't know. Maybe it does. I haven't done that yet.
I got to put that on my list of potential beer names if I ever start a brewery. White space.
There you go. Yeah.
That's going to go right with my Rest IPA.
I like that. All right. Well, today I'm excited about the show. It's something that I don't have a ton of experience with, but I'm excited to learn about. We're going to do we're going to work with data stream actions as a data source, and Chuck is going to walk us through that. So Chuck, you want to describe what we're doing today, and then we can drop into a screen share?
Yeah, you bet. The backdrop for this is we're migrating the TechNow data and app off of that instance. This sounds real familiar because we did something similar or tried to do something similar with the community live stream app. Bring that into our artifact manager application, which is on a different instance. The artifact manager already has all the blog entries, all of the live coding happy hour. Just that's where the stuff is that we manage, except for TechNow, which predated a lot of that stuff. So we're bringing it in, and the architecture has changed. Instead of one record for an episode that contains links to the community and all the YouTube stats and whatnot, we've broken it out into different articles and different record types in Artifact Manager. That being said, I've got a many-to-many table for the attendees. After we get done with one of the webinars for TechNow, we get this spreadsheet from the vendor and we import it into the instance. And it says, here's sheet 1 is your attendees. Sheet 2 is the questions and answers. Sheet 3 are the survey results. And you kind of get the idea. We get some statistics out of there that we bring into the instance, and then we can start getting some reports, compare it to how we did last month, et cetera, et cetera. I've already gone through and imported the attendees. That's just the straight first name, last name, email address. I've constructed a name field, much like sysuser does, that's a concatenation of first name and last name. So I bring those in, and those are a single, it's not in the sysuser table. I made that conscious decision not to do that. These are the webinar attendees, or now they'll be artifact attendees because we could potentially use that for something else. The other side is, what is the webinar record? So I have a many-to-many table, both on the legacy system and the new system, that joins those together, because one person may go to several TechNow episodes. Kind of get the idea, like users and groups, there's that many-to-many table in the middle that joins them. And now we could do even more statistics, like who's been to the webinar in the last 6 months, or who hasn't, and maybe we need to invite them in. All kinds of different ways you can slice and dice this. Well, the goal is to take advantage of one of the Paris features. You can use a data stream from IntegrationHub as a data source. So normally when we import things using data sources and import sets, we'll attach a spreadsheet, or you do a JDBC query or something of that nature. Well, now you can make the source a data stream, which is really freaking cool, because I just love data streams after building a number of them last summer for getting paginated data. That's what we're up to. I did one for the attendees. There were over 11,000 records in the attendees table. We're going to try and keep our eye out for privacy and not expose anybody but ServiceNow email addresses. And I've got the episodes imported. That was yesterday's mission and partly this morning's mission. So that's done, albeit there's a little work left to do on cleaning up the data. But I've got the attendees and I've got the episodes in Artifact Manager. Now we're going to go import them. Well, in a many-to-many table, there's at least 2 fields, and they're both sysids. The sysids are great for the other system. Now we need a way to map those into the new system, because it's not an episode anymore, it's an artifact. Different table, different sysid. The attendees all came in with new sysids when those were created. So you kind of see there's a bit of a crazy hook in here. And if I use the name field as the display value and say, hey, just go set the display value to Jared Munt or Brad Tilton or Chuck Tomasi, there may be 2 Jared Munts out there with different email addresses. That's the unique factor. So temporarily, I've changed the display value on the TechNow legacy system to the email address. I'm guaranteed to get unique records out of there. If there are 2, I actually saw there was one person that had an underscore in their email address and a dot. And I swear it's the same person because the domain was the same. Maybe they changed the way that their corporate email system worked after a while. So we're going to hit things like that. I'm sure it's the same person and it might not matter in the long run, but I don't want to take that chance with more common names. So let's get started on that. Any questions before we begin?
No, I'm excited to see it.
Okay, screen share. We've got to get the right screen here. That one. And go. All right. So I am on the dev program dev instance, And this is my table that I'm after. I've got artifacts and I've got attendees. There's nothing in here right now. If I look at attendees, I've filtered out the 11,000 records so that it's just ServiceNow people. There's 170 people who have attended Tech Now over the last couple of years, which is always intriguing and appreciated. So I want to first start by building. Well, let me show you what it looks like. I'll give you what it looks like baked. So let's go to data sources. And underneath system import sets data sources, I've got import attendees. And here you can see, where's my control thing? There. Here you can see, I don't know why it does that. Got to be careful.
Yeah,
you can rename things because it defaults to the first field.
Yeah, you get the focus, but it's always a tad later than you want it to be.
Data stream is my type. And you can see, we've done file in the past if you've been through any implementation boot camps or anything. And over here it says, great, tell me about what data stream action you're going to use. This is an ordinary data stream action that I built. You can also do REST integration hub, but you can't use any old REST action. In fact, REST is a step. There is no REST action. You have to build that specifically through here. Now, the cool thing is I can just go click on this and it'll bring me right to Flow Designer to that data stream action. And I can tell it's a data stream action when it gets done running because up here in the upper left, it says data stream action. I've got my inputs. There's no inputs, just go. You don't give inputs to data streams. I'm not doing any pre-processing on this. And I do have a little pagination. Now, for communicating with another ServiceNow instance, we've got to use offset and limit. And I'll get into that in just a little bit. But the template you use, you can say, hey, I can use a template and it will finish this script for me. Only it doesn't quite get it right because there's a critical variable called getNextPage, which says, is there still more to do? Which is how it does the pagination. It doesn't set any of that for you. I got this script off of the docs, only it's a picture, so I had to type it myself, which is disappointing in a way. Right? Then it drops into the REST step, and it does your typical REST stuff. Go do a get against this table, use the credentials that I told you about. And here's my sysparm limit, which was set in the variables. Here's my sysparm offset, which is set in the variables. And if you've ever looked at like some of the URLs, we should do this sometime, just take apart a URL and do all the sysparm stuff on it. I'm also using a sysparm query, but instead of using it as a filter, I'm using it as an order. So I say order by name so that I know what order these records are coming in. I get all the people by name and I know when I'm done when I hit the end. If I'm still on G, it's not done. There's a splitter step that says, how do you want me to parse up the JSON that comes in to know one record from the next? That could be different depending on who your source is. Fortunately for ServiceNow, it's real easy. And the script parser step, which takes that JSON apart into its individual records and tells me how I want to represent it. And finally, of course, our output. What does one of those target records look like? This is what you look like. And you better have attributes that match these names. Let's go build one of those because we already know this one works. But we'll keep this one up as a reference because I want to copy that script.
So what was this one that you just showed us? What is that importing? This is
the one that's attached to the data source that imported the attendees. Oh, and once it's attached in the data source, then you just go build yourself a regular old transform map. And you get all the benefits that transforms give you, like the coalescing and whether I should run business rules or not. This one was pretty simple. I've got email mapped to email, first name, last name, coalesce on email. Nothing real surprising there.
nice.
So I have not done this yet, so this is all a great mystery, but I thought about that display value thing this morning. Let's start with data stream. And I'm going to call this import Tech Now attendees, episode attendees, because I already did the attendee information. That was the simple table. This is the many-to-many. Artifact manager, blah, blah, blah. Looks good to me. And it goes and fleshes this out. So inputs, again, I have no inputs to this one. I'm not going to be doing any pre-processing script, so let's jump right into the request. How will you get data? REST step. Enable pagination. Most definitely. There's 16,998 records by 2 more people. 2 more, and even 17K. Run a script before each request. I don't think so at this point. And as you see, when you check these, it just turns on extra steps in this template, which is really handy. The pagination, here's where this template thing comes in handy. I wish there was more than one kind of template. Obviously, this is geared drastically towards ServiceNow, but doesn't quite fill in all of the parameters. There's nothing in here about get next page. But again, if you go to the data source page in the docs and look at pagination, you'll see that it gives you a script just like this. So I'm going to copy it and let me digest that for you. Oops. Okay. So I say change the limit above to configure the results per page. First, we turn it into an integer. Assume these variables are like many other JavaScript things, and you're probably not getting the data type you want. So I run it through parse int. I get the offset and the limit. This is to say start at 0 and get me 10 records, or 100 records. Start at 10 and get me another 10. Start at, that's what tells you. Now the total count actually comes out of, and I was wondering this when I was playing around yesterday, what is this page response thing? Page response gives you access to things like the response headers. When you go into the REST API Explorer and you do a test request, you see all these things like how long it took, how many records there were, who the signing certificate authority is, lots of headers. You can get at those headers from in here. And the important one that I want is this one called X total count, which is going to say 16,998 in my case. Well, I now know where I am and where I need to be and where my next offset will be. So I can say, are we done yet? That's really what that one's saying. If we aren't done yet, then get another page. This is the critical get next page thing. And probably the biggest thing you'll run into when you do pagination is I either got one page or I got an infinite loop. And most likely it's always because of the way you're handling variables.getNextPage. So that one will throw, it cost me days last summer, but now I have an utmost respect for it. If that's true, then I'll go and update the offset and bump it to the next page so the next time I come around, it's right. And then for whatever reason, the example on the page does this. It turns it back into a string, which I thought was interesting. Yeah. If the next offset, let's say we've got 16,998 and I'm going by 100 and it says your next offset is 17,000. Well, obviously this is now going to evaluate it false and say, don't get any more then. And this is really what drives the pagination. If I were in Flow Designer and I were consuming this, I just drop in my data stream action and it kind of makes that action like a for each. So there's a built-in branch under it. And I can say, great, for every record, and it just goes through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, hey, it's time to get another page of information. And behind the scenes, the data stream does this chunking for you. But out in front, it just looks like a record, another record, kind of like a glide record query does. But that's the pagination setup. I lost my cursor on some other screen in another county in this room. Let's go get the REST step. Pretty easy.
To clarify on that, we are not going through a Midserver for this example, but if you do go through a Midserver, I think there's some fun things to do with pagination as well.
Oh, do you have an example or a use case?
As I haven't used this in production or anything like that, but as I understand it, normally when you're paginating through a Midserver, it goes from the instance to the Midserver to your destination and back up to the instance. You increment and it sends another thing through the ECC queue down to the Midserver. With this, there's a way to configure it. Again, as I understand the release notes, where you can configure it to go down to send one command down to the Midserver, The Midserver then does 100 pages to the resource, compiles your JSON, whatever, and then sends that back up to the instance for processing. So you save a whole lot of round trips.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that would. That makes a whole lot of sense rather than one record at a time. Okay. Let's use the appropriate. I already set up. This is basic auth from instance to instance. You can use whatever you want, but somewhere in here I have Artifact Manager TechNow credentials.
That looks right.
It's
Chuck,
got,
can you pull up the right part of your browser over a little bit? We can see till about the right side of the properties button right now.
right. You tell me when.
That looks good.
There.
I think
right
that's
at the
good.
edge of my drop downs and whatnot. I'll lose my data pill picker if I go any further. Okay, so my variables are up here on the data panel. And I've got TechNow as my instance. I'm going to configure this manually. The resource path is now going to be the table API. And I honestly don't remember what the structure was for the table API. So I'm going to cheat and go over here. You can get this out of the REST API Explorer as well. In fact, I often test there first. Now let's go. Resource path is going to be, instead of this, it's going to be my M2M episode attendees. This one is plural. I spelled it completely wrong, didn't I? How many T's is that? T-T-E-N-D-E-E-S. Yeah, it might be episodes into it. Okay, now I have to go look. Darn it. Hate it when you don't remember names. I usually name my many-to-manys very consistently.
Yeah.
This one predates my standardization.
What do you go with first out of the two tables?
I go with the top table. So whatever the main record is, and then the related list that I want to see. So if it was, and I guess that's arbitrary because it's a many-to-many. Darn it. It's where I'm going to be using it most. Like on the Jeopardy game, I have a game record with players. So it was game_players or game_player because it's one record. Let's see what this is. So let's go to any old episode that has some attendees. We did IDR month.
Phil has a good question. He says, do you use plurals in the M2M tables or not?
I don't anymore. At least I try not to. I try to use plurals in tables as never as possible.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Oops, so much for my privacy. But here, you can actually go to Studio. Might be a little more privacy. There we go. TechNow. Oh, darn it. Wrong instance. Let's go to the TechNow dev instance. You can't open Studio on production, by the way.
On dev program?
No, on
TechNow.
Yeah, if it was, I think this was pushed by the repo last time. All right, try that again. Loading Studio. And my source table is called, what app am I in? I'm in Jeopardy. Switch. TechNow. Tables. Episode attendees. That is not the way I would name it if I were to do it again today. The only tables that I'm aware of in ServiceNow that are plural are sys properties and the PA tables. And why the PA people didn't read the manual before they got started, I don't know. But make it a general practice not to make plural tables because it's already going to plural the table label for you. And once you're off that standardization, it gets really confusing. It's like, was this a plural or not? So this is xarb M2M attendees episode. Okay, this really predates my, and I'm glad I copy and pasted because I wasn't even.
Nice.
All right. Query parameters. We know we need sysparm limit, right, to tell it how many we got, and we'll go from the variable. We know we need This is going to vary from API to API, by the way, how you do the pagination and how you get a group of records. Sysparm offset. When you do YouTube, you just pass it a page token. I think there is a limit on there though. You say I want 50 records, and their API says you can get up to 50 records.
It is limit and offset, and then the cursor based that you just described are the big two. So once you figure those out, you can integrate with just about anything.
Yep. And obviously sysparm limit and sysparm offset are ServiceNow. It could be N and Q or P and T or whatever. Their query parameters are up to you. There is one other one that I want to put in here. And for privacy, just for this test, I'm going to put in a sysparm query that mimics this table that I had, this filter. Not that one, this one. So I just get the thing where email contains ServiceNow for privacy. I'll take this out later. Honest, I swear I will. I'll remember.
We believe you.
How many times you said that, right? And these are pretty small records, so I'm going to get pages of 100. Something you may want to keep in mind that I discovered yesterday, last night, is when you go through and do this parsing, there's a built-in JSON parser that does this thing for you. And it will, if your payload is greater than 16384, which many of you will recognize as 2 to the, what is that, 12th? I can't remember now. But it's 16K. That's as big of a record as it can get. And I was importing the actual TechNow records, which have blog articles in a field, which one record exceeds that, let alone getting a page of records. Ain't happening. There is a system property that you can change to extend how big that JSON parser will do. And now my page size, my limit is 1, but I can get these records all, it's totally transparent to Flow Designer. Okay, so keep that in mind. Did we finish parsing? We said we'll get 100 records. We get our rest step. I think we also, it would be good practice to put in content type application JSON and accept. I think this is the default, but I always feel better putting them in the headers to say, here's what I'm sending and here's what I'll take. All right, then we get down to the parsing. How will you identify each record? Oh, I'll use the JSON XML splitter, of course. Great. How will you parse them? With the script parser, because I don't have much of a choice with that. I assume at some point the XML parser or the JSON parser in here at some point? I don't know. What if you said I don't want to? It's a mandatory field and you only have one choice. Why? You can tell there's something on the roadmap. Source format, JSON, item path. So the item path, if I were doing XML, I would give it an XPath, / this, / that, to get down to the array of stuff. Now, I don't have my sample payload on here, but if you've ever looked at, oh, the heck with it. Let's just go get a sample payload. I want to go back here and go to the REST API Explorer, because it's always fun to understand what it is you're getting. Waiting for those tables to load. And let's get X under or B TechNow M2M any day. There we go. Attendees. We'll do the sysparm query that I just had. Fortunately, that was still in the copy paste buffer. We'll just get one record just to see what the payload looks like. And we don't really need a limit or offset on this. But what I do want is this display value. That's the other one I should set. I must set that. Otherwise, you're just going to get sysids back. In fact, let's leave that off just to see what happens if we forget it. And go send, go get me a record from this table. Here's those headers that I've got to look at. And total count was 0. That wasn't any fun. Oh, you know why? Because there is no email field. It's going to be attendee.email.
Ah.
Okay, I still got 0. Let's take the filter out for a moment. And I'm probably just going to get a sysid. Send. Did I get one? I got one, I got one. Okay, and here's what you would normally get. Let's see if we can. This is the many-to-many record. My attendee record has a link because it's a reference field, and the value is a lovely sysid. That's not going to, none of this does any good on the target system. Same thing with the episode. There's no episode table, and the sysid is completely bogus. So what I would be better off doing is getting specific information about this. The display values would really help. And to make sure that I don't get some privacy information, I really wish I had done that in a pop-out window. Let's go and get here the table. I want just the table name. Episodes. How are we doing on time? We're doing good. I'll come back to REST API Explorer. That dot list. We can either do privacy shrubbery, or I can tear this off and put it on another screen. Let's do that instead. Okay, you stare at that studio picture for a while. Well, I figure out why there's only one record on here. That's not right. Oh, I'm in dev. What? I only have one record? Okay, that was one record and only one record. Why do I only have one record in that table? Because we're pulling from production. I mean, this is dev. Don't rely on your dev data. How's that for a testimonial? Let's go back to production, because it will have the data that I'm really, really after. And again, I'm going to take this and put it on another screen, then do a privacy filter just so I have those ServiceNow people in there again. That list and filter where show related fields, email.
So Brad, did we mention that this data stream action, if you don't see this on your PDI, that you might not have the IntegrationHub Enterprise activated?
We didn't mention that.
That's a great call out.
That when I was first looking for this, I ended up going back to the documentation, back to that request IntegrationHub document that lists everything out. I guess in the spirit of live coding and kind of celebrating our missteps as learning experiences, a related story to that, I was in our company's development instance. I had, through High, activated IntegrationHub Enterprise, and I was happily building my flow, my IntegrationHub, and I went to go use the JSON parser, and it wasn't there. And I looked around, couldn't find it. XML parser was there, data stream, or everything for enterprise was there except for JSON parser. And I couldn't figure it out. Got frustrated, put in a High ticket. The person from High politely says, your dev instance is on Orlando and JSON parser is not available until Paris. So it's not just the occasional JavaScript mistake or studio mistake. It's even documentation mistakes and high ticket mistakes that even the veterans do occasionally.
Missing JSON parser. Does that sound familiar, Brad?
We had one of those on live code earlier this year when we all thought it came out in Orlando and tried to find it. And we're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It hasn't come out yet.
How about my Slack message last night? I said, wait, dev program dev doesn't have a JSON parser? What happened here?
I missed that episode and I learned the hard way. So that'll teach me to miss an episode.
No, that's a good point. I mean, lots of times it's plugin not activated. If you're working with a bunch of different instances, they're not on the same version, or all that stuff.
Oh, dang it! I think I just put away the wrong table. I lost track of where I was. Where was I? I was on the item path. What I wanted was the REST API Explorer with this query to see the payload. Yes, that's what it was. That's what it was. So REST API Explorer on my TechNow instance. I want to see the legacy data according to the legacy system. Loading tables, xorb, TechNow, M2M, attendees episodes. Ugh. Okay, let's put in our sysparm query, ends with ServiceNow, and I should get one record. Did I get one record? Looks like it. Where's my total? This one doesn't have it. Total count 191. Okay, but it only gives you one because there's an implied sysparm limit. Okay, it's in a result array. I've got my top level object, I've got my result, and I've got those crazy sys IDs that aren't going to do anybody any good. So what I want to do is say, go up here and say display sysparm display value. You can either return the values, you can get the actual values, which are sys ID. You get the display values with true, sys IDs with false, or both by saying all. So if I were to say all, this is great for reference fields, but it makes every other thing an object too.
Yeah.
Like choice, here's your display value, here's a value, here's a string. It's the same value and display value, but I'm going to put it in an object for you. So I guess if you wanted to say, there are maybe a case where you want to go through your properties in the object and get all the display values. That would guarantee everything has a attribute called display value. All right, so if I put in both sysID, display value, and value, that's helpful. Let me zoom in a little bit on that. Yeah, nice, huh? When would you ever use that? Again, maybe you could just specify a list of fields and everything is guaranteed to have a display value attribute inside it. I could see that. But here's the attendee. Display value is the email address, and then this other stuff isn't going to help me on the other side. When you get to the episode, here's the title, and here is the stuff that's not going to do me any good on the other side. That's if I said all. Now, if I set this to just true, it defaults to false, by the way. Set it to true and try it again. I now have just the objects with the reference fields with their display value and their link. I mean, you could always tease out the sysID if you needed to for that reference, but it's not going to do me any good on the other system. So think about that when you're interchanging information. What does the other system know and what do they have to work with? But given this, I can now determine if that exists or not. So the structure is noted this way. That was a long way to go to get our little parser thing going. The item path is called $result. That's where you put in there to say, that's where you can find your array of stuff. Now the script parser step has 2 points to it. There's an inputs and an outputs. And the inputs has an implicit source item in here. So source item is built in, and target object is the implied output. So if whoa, not sure where I went on that. To the bottom of the script and right out the end. The fastest way I know to do this is to say outputs. Actually, I've not had a lot of good luck when I assign directly to outputs. So I'm going to say our obj equals JSON parse inputs dot source item. Just go take the whole thing you got back in that payload and parse it for me. And then outputs dot target object equals obj. It might be me. It might just be a bad experience I had way back 6 months ago. But this also lets me introspect it if I wanted to do a stringify and go, did I really get it? And put it in the log or do something else.
Yeah, just assigning it assumes that it's going to work the first time too. So that's
yeah, and that
I would never do that. I'm going to assume it's not going to work, and I'm going to need to debug it.
So I've made my request. I've split it up. I parsed it. Now I've got to assign it to the outputs, and my output is going to be really fun. I'm going to create an output and call it naming the variable is always the worst part, right? Attendee, here, artifact, attendee. It's one object. You're going to get one at a time. And it's going to be called artifact attendee. Now, here's where it gets fun. We're going to define an object. And you know what? I don't want to do that simplified one because it's not a flat object. If it were, I could do this real easy and just go, oh, like the attendee had a name, a first name, a last name, and an email. Very flat. These reference fields kind of muck this up a little bit. So first I want to parse that, and then I'm going to assign these explicitly and do outputs, .target object. It's already an object, so I don't need to define anything. I can just start populating it. I have attendee email equals obj dot attendee. All right, is that what I got out of the payload? Let's go look at, this is where it's really handy to have this REST API Explorer. Attendee.display value. Whew. Keep this sample payload with you at all times till you're done. Attendee display value. And then...
Are we looking at target object dot attendee email?
Yes, thank you. How I had 2 equal signs in there? That would have been fun. Object dot. Thank you, Jared. And then the other one is going to be the artifact title, obj episode display value. Yes? We don't know, so we're going to go look. Episode display value. Okay, good. Whew. Sometimes you have to construct these things yourself, and sometimes we don't need that. Sometimes you get lucky and you could just go parse the input object, it's going to be my output. Now, when you define these, go back to edit outputs, I've got my object. These variables must match the ones in your script. So you can label them anything you want. Call it attendee, but this part has to be attendee email. And that is going to be a string. This one is called artifact title, and it must match artifact title. All right. What do you think? Think we have half a chance? Go test it. We're so eager to hit that big test button. Will it run? Will it run? It ran, it did something. And I think I get 1 page of 20 records. I don't see any output.
Total item count, 0.
Page count 1. All right, what happened? Where is our request? Step configuration, step configuration. That's the splitter step. Where's my rest?
Did we get an output?
Result
Response body. Oh, yeah.
Result nothing. Where's my, can I see the request? Request payload size, 557 bytes. Response payload, 1160. What is this? Oh, that. I want to see what I tried sending. There we go. It went to API. It's not a permissions thing because I'm admin on the other system and it's using my credentials. All right. Well, we got a 200, so it didn't bomb out too bad, but we got no response payload.
What was in the response header? Did you get did it have 0 as the total record?
Response header. You read that? I can't. Throw it in a JSON beautifier. Utify.
Total count 0, I saw.
Yeah.
Server, transaction ID.
Yeah, there it is.
Total count 0. Okay, that didn't do us any good. What happened? It wasn't an error like we got the wrong table name.
So query parameters.
Sysparm limit 100. Made if empty, offset 0. Made if empty.
Yep.
Sysparm query email. Oh, I still have the wrong query.
That's right. It
You
was
said you were
it
going to
attendee
take that out
email?
later, and you meant it.
No, I said, is that what I promised? Yeah, I got to change it later because it doesn't work.
You'll update it immediately.
Let's get that.
Attendee.email.
Cancel that. Go back to our REST. Put in our sysparm query. I think I changed it there.
Yeah.
Cursor out somewhere else so I can get a save button. Now we'll get some data. We got to get this wrecking and rolling because we still need to put it into the data source.
Well, only 12 minutes left.
I can do that. I can do that. It's all going to come down to that transform anyway. Now do we get something? We got an object.
Total item count 20. Oh, no. Let's see.
It's got to be something in that script parser that I'm doing.
What was empty there? Did we know it was in the, oh yeah. What was did it have an error or anything in the parser?
I don't think so. We can go look at the execution details again. You know, see in the page details?
Yeah, let's go.
Look like any error.
So
it's payload size.
The output.
Response body.
Yeah, so there's stuff in the results.
Response body looks good. And it knew there were 20 records in there because that's what it should do, is get sample size of 20. Attendee display.
We don't have display value here.
What?
We have Lincoln.
You know why? Because we never put it into the request.
We did it in API Explorer.
We did it in the API Explorer, but we never put it in here to say display value. Value.
Is it just display?
True.
I think it's just sysparm display, right?
Nope, display value.
Oh, nope. I'm way wrong.
I was with Brad on that one. it didn't look quite right.
No, it doesn't look quite right. Test, run. These are the things you'll trip up on, people. And I'm doing this a little off kilter because I've never done a many-to-many table. And outputs. Look at that.
Hey, all right.
ServiceNow people in here. Now that we know this is working, and it will give us some records, 100 at a time, so we'll get a whole 2 pages for this query. Let's go back to our data source and make a new data source. So system import sets data sources, new techno, come on, episode attendees, close enough. Import set table name, import episode. Let's name it like the other one, just so I don't go insane.
Tip for import set table labeling, I always include IMP or the word import, because I have definitely named tables the same as the target, and that doesn't go well.
I don't even give them good labels. I want them to jump out at me and go, hey. All right, now we can pick the data stream. And if we look in here, we should have import tech now episode. That's my other data stream. I should have named the action with a DS. I can relabel it, I suppose. Tech now attendees. Where is it? Where is it? I do that.
Episodes. Do you have to publish it?
I do have to publish it. That is a very good point. If you ever doubt yourself, you can always do the good old show and look at the reference qualifier. Published equals true.
There we go.
Good call. Yeah, I have so much faith in it that I'm going to. Okay. One more time. And I thought we might have some spare time to go chase down.
I was thinking about that.
Always when you think this is going to be quick, never, never. Okay.
Well, relative to the old world of doing it all in scripts and scheduled jobs, and we have time to spare going this way.
That's true. We are a little spoiled with Flow Designer and Integration Hub.
When,
oh yeah, I can do that in 45 minutes.
When I was doing the episode import, and each one of those mapped to 2 or 3 different records on the target system, man, that is so much easier to do in Flow Designer than on before and on after scripts and the transform map. It was just butt ugly over there. Okay, let's import 20 test records just to make sure. Running. Thank you, Chrome, but I'll remember that password, I'm sure. I got 20 inserts. Woohoo! And let's go create a transform map now that you know my import set structure. Call this Techno episode attendees. Target table is going to be X. Is it SNC? Artifact manager.
Oh, that's the artifact, yeah.
Artifact manager, M2M, artifact attendee. That's
there
where
we go.
We don't need business rules. There's nothing to be gained by that here. Save. Now, here's the fun part. How to do the field mapping. So what we have is artifact title and artifact email. And all we know here is attendee and artifact. No, other way around.
Yep.
Let's not do that. That would be bad. I've never taken 2 fields out at the same time. Now, these have to be driven by display value, because remember, I'm not getting a sysid here. Do I want to coalesce? Logic would tell me that they're already going to be unique. I need to make sure that my display value on this target table is also the email address. So forgive me a moment while I jump into Studio and look at, why do I have a table named episode attendees and input? Whatever. Oh, those must be my
That's
input.
yeah.
Okay. Whew. Threw me off on that one. Artifact attendee is my many-to-many. After you create your many-to-many oh, look, it's already in front of my face. How convenient. Who's the display value on? Oh, I need the display value on the attendee table, not on the many-to-many. This one has email. Good.
And then is artifact the title? Is that the
artifact?
I think it is.
You tell me, it's your app. I'm pretty sure it is.
I think it is, but I think we have numbers too.
We do, and for whatever reason, it's not generating numbers on this instance, but that's a problem for another time. Not a number, title. Title is the
Yep.
value. Okay. I'm ready, except when you do a test load, watch this. When you do a transform, it does
Success.
No, it doesn't do success. It doesn't do success. Because go ahead, Jared, you had something to say.
I did want to take another look at that coalesce value and confirm that we don't want to set both to true.
Yeah, I think it would either be both or none, right? But if we set them both to true, then you will only ever have one, one many-to-many record.
No, it means both have to match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we want, is to, on every import, we don't want to keep creating records. We want to find it and update it.
That's a good point.
Which will give you both if it's true. I'm probably going to run this import like 1,000 times before I actually make it to production. But what was there's a rationale you don't want to set both to true?
No, I do want to set both to true.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I was saying either both or none. You don't want to set one to true on a many-to-many.
Yeah, no. Yeah, okay, I get that totally. Let's go back to our data source. Data source, we're almost there. At least we're almost to a point where we can admit we're a success or a failure. Let's load all records. And it loaded 91. That's good. Let's run the transform on our latest import set. Run that. And it doesn't tell you on this one, so let's go to the transform history. 191 inserts. Oh, sweetness, right at the end of the show. Look at that, 191.
Oh, nice.
Just so I am certain, what is one of the episodes, Extend Integration Hub with Custom Spokes? Let's see how many ServiceNow people attended that one. So my related list of attendees, 3 ServiceNow people were on here. And Aaron, if you go to Aaron's record, oh, I never put the related list on. So let's put the related list on now. You could see how many artifacts he's associated with. 1.
He only cares about Integration Hub.
For now. Well, then he should be watching this video. Okay, so that was the fun of importing a many-to-many table, which I'd never done before. And using a data source. Any final comments? I got to go remember to remove that sysparm query so I can get the other.
That's right.
1,000 whatever it is.
All right. You want to drop us out of screen share here?
Yep. Anything in the chat we need to know about?
I don't think so. I think people enjoyed it. Yeah, we had a what's a scheduled job question earlier.
You could do scheduled job data source. Standard stuff really applies after that. Anything in that transform with the befores and on afters and on start, on complete, all of that is available in the integration series up to episode 15, which released on December 1st. We forgot to do our plugs. Or are we doing that at the end?
We're going to do it after we rate.
I just plugged the integration series.
That's fine.
Available on the ServiceNow Developer channel on the playlist. Learn integrations on the Now platform. There are more coming out. I've got 3 more on email that are coming up, and then I go into web services. So I'm sort of in this limbo. I've got hardware on order that I can finish this video production on the next chapter. So stick with me. It's coming. It's coming. And while I'm waiting for the equipment, I write scripts.
Anything there you go. All right, well, let's rate our drinks. Jared, we'll start with you. What do you give it?
Fancy sparkling water. I'm gonna go with a 4 again.
I've got my Corona Premium. Is it premium or special or Premier? Corona Premier. 3.75 with the 1/4 point success factor.
Nice. I've got my positive space, which is a spin on my negative space from last week, and I'm going to give it a 4.75. It was excellent.
Ooh, awesome. You did 4.75 last week, if I remember.
I did. Well, they're pretty similar beers. So yeah, I did. All right. Well, thanks for.
Quick
Oh, go
reminder,
ahead.
January 26th, 8 a.m. Pacific time is Tech Now. We will be covering the Quebec features. I don't have the link for the registration page at my fingertips this time, but I believe we put it in the chat last time. If you really want, I'll put it in the comments on the video. So if you're looking for it, I'll put it in the comments, not the chat, but I'll put the registration. That's going to be the Quebec release. So tons of good stuff coming out. Don't want to miss that one. Last week we did an interview with Paige Duffy. That will be coming out on Breakpoint next Wednesday, which I believe is the 19th? No, 20th of January. And then we're going to be talking to Andrew Barnes right after that about Quebec features and get some of his insights of what's hot and what's not, and his favorite stuff and where we're going to take things. So lots and lots of more great content. You don't want to miss that one. But the big one is Quebec on the 26th. So mark your calendars for whatever time zone that's in, 8 a.m. Pacific time on the 26th for Quebec platform features.
Yeah, and we may be doing something Quebec related on next week's show. So stay tuned for that. We'll have to see. Jared, anything you want to plug?
Nothing actively, but I'll see you out on the SNDevs Slack if you want to catch up around midweek.
PDIs, they'll be upgrading to you can upgrade them to Quebec. Starting Thursday, the 21st.
I think so. That was the last thing I heard. I don't know that we can commit to that day, but I think that's probably about right.
Safe harbor. But Thursday or Friday, look for that option so you can start upgrading your PDI to Quebec. Last I checked, it took about an hour to upgrade for the previous releases. So then you can watch the tech now and understand what you got. It's like getting a package from Amazon. Like, I'm not going to open it for a couple of days. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Jared.
All right. Yeah, well, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody who joined us in the chat, and we will talk to everyone next week. Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye.